How's it going? So quickly as we're getting started for this episode, I'm putting a warning out. This video, you may or may not be able to see, is not monetized. If you somehow saw an ad before this, that's YouTube doing a weird thing, but I flag very clearly this is not monetized, and this is why. I don't know how you're going to let a text scroll be the intro here. I need this to be a you and me connection right here. This video contains delusions that are specifically horrific, like real bad stuff. For most people, it's probably fine. The imagery is fairly minimal, it's workable, and I feel like it's within lines of terms of service with YouTube. But if you are, I don't know, extra sensitive to topics of gore, violence, and sexual assault, you need to be careful and understand this might not be an episode for you. It gets pretty heavy here. And again, the reason why I'm even saying this is because for me, I'm such a visual person. Like I take like a story that I'm reading, like even a book, and I see it playing in my head like a movie. Add in a visual novel where you add sound effects, like visual cues and voice acting, and that makes it so much more real for me because it makes it so much easier for me to depict these like scenes in my head like a movie script, almost like, or more accurately, it feels like it's something playing out directly in front of my eyes. So for me, it was really, really uncomfortable because it takes things pretty freaking far. Again, I don't think it breaches anything on YouTube's side of things, but I was feeling uncomfortable. And anytime I start feeling a little uncomfortable, it's not because it's bad. It's just the fact that it's talking about very, unfortunately, real, terrible things that can happen to people. And the fact that there are people who've lived through things like are being depicted here in Delusions. And so that means I feel it should be something you should be given a heads up for, because there could be people amongst you or around you who could find this horrifically disturbing in too real a way. So it's just a heads up for that. It's very strong, very powerful ending to this episode, though. Really interesting to see where the story has gone here and the way they're playing things out. And I think I like it, but it's so intense. It's kind of like, it's made my emotions and my brain kind of get wrung out. And I feel like I ended up engaging, I think, like the shutdown sequence of my emotions where like the self-protection kicked in a bit. So I feel like I'm not as expressive about halfway through because of just how intense things get, which is unfortunate, but it's also just real. So just a heads up. Anyway, I'm rambling enough. You got more rambling ahead of you, but it's a long episode. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, looking forward to see where we go from here. So see you in a sec. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to Chaos Head. So here we are. We've kind of hooked up with everybody else that we know of that has a D-sword, except for Rimi. She's the only one. Well, she's the one we're kind of going after now. Basically, we've gained some insight. So Taku's become a lot more powerful and has a lot more capability of controlling delusions. He's used them to be able to basically find and rescue his sister, Yua, Isa, and now Senna and Kozupi. It's been pretty cool. We even had a showdown with Sua, which was insane and intense because he did this kind of like synchro thing where Sua was attacking him with delusional like crosses, and right before the death blow, Taku swapped their spots so that it became reality that he was the one throwing them and the Sua was the one that was attacked and he died from it. So cool stuff. I almost had a thought while we were going through that where I was like, it hit me. I was like, it kind of is a bit jarring that Taku goes from this like helpless little like gremlin who wants to die to someone who can just do all of these crazy things, projecting memories onto big screens, finding and altering reality around his friends and allies, being able to do a swap between himself and an enemy to put the enemy in his shoes while he's dying and giving himself like no injuries at all. And I was like, that's like the power level is just so insane to go from like basically a pathetic weakling to now almost a demigod. And I was like, it feels like that shouldn't be possible because you shouldn't be able to do that. But then I kind of thought about it. I was like, well, you know what? Maybe it's giving it too much credit, but it almost feels like that's actually the point. The idea is supposed to be that Taku is so good at delusion, he doesn't need to actually like hone his skills because delusions aren't a skill. They're just the capability of being able to project your own like delusions and intangible realities and superimpose them onto the world and then kind of force them to exist by sheer deterministic. Like, and that's the thing. When you can literally use your imagination to shape the world, there's no power scaling to that. He's basically lucid dreaming in real life. Now, there's going to be limits to it, but those limits are being enhanced because he's also in a bit of a perfect scenario because there's so much delusion being wielded as magical power, basically. You know, the Nozomi devices, you have the Noah 2 having done this big detonation, you have all the D-swords. Basically, you just have all this power of delusion and perception and misperception being thrown around. It's almost like the perfect playground for somebody who could utilize those powers to manifest new realities or sub-realities. It also talked about a little bit how when you have two Gigamaniacs who like can agree on a delusion, it helps solidify it basically into permanent reality. And that made me think, like, wouldn't it be more advantageous for him to travel with another Gigamaniac so he could always manipulate things in a more permanent way? But maybe that's not strictly necessary. He seems pretty capable of doing a lot of this stuff on his own. So it's just really interesting. And it's just funny because like what would normally be a plot hole kind of actually works because delusions themselves kind of preclude this idea of having to practice wielding your power because they're not really a power. It's just simply the ability to look past what's really in front of you and impose your own delusion. It's just for most people that just makes you a mad person. But for Taku, it makes him a demigod, which is crazy. So yeah, we're gonna see how this all plays out. I know we're getting close to like the kind of ending, a soft ending, and there's gonna be more to the game. That's the Noah part of the game. Like the original release, I think is supposed to we'd be at the end here really soon, but then we're gonna have more to explore after. Not sure how that plays out, but we'll get to it. But for now, we're gonna pace ourselves. We're gonna go through. We're gonna see what the next steps are, what's gonna happen, because now we have to go and rescue Rimi. I think she's the last one we have to physically like go after that we haven't been able to save or make a difference with. So, yeah. That's about it. Just wanted to get those thoughts out there. Let's get started. As I made my way through the dark tunnel, I relied on the red glow of my D-sword to see. My steps naturally became quicker and quicker. I'd never walked on subway tracks at all before. As certain as I was that no trains were coming, the mere possibility had me tense enough that I couldn't keep my head from frantically whipping back and forth. It was a minute-long train ride between Shibuya Station and Shinsen Station. The distance between should have been less than a kilometer. Luckily for me, the tunnel in the Inokashira line didn't have too many cave-ins, so making it to Shibuya Station shouldn't have been the worst thing ever. But something was still weighing on me. Kozupi had warned me about something before we parted ways. Oopy goopy ploopy head consciousnesses. What is that? Okay, be careful. Oopy goopy ploopy head consciousnesses. Right, at the very least I imagined I wasn't gonna like those. I was starting to have second thoughts. Fear crept up into me, and I started to feel incredibly alone. I think that's the other, like the double-edged sword of delusion. I think he's just as liable to manifest his bad delusions. I said that way beforehand, where I talked about how, like, even sometimes he'd have good delusions and be twisted by his negative thoughts. I wonder if that's going to be a problem or a potential crisis issue, where as soon as he stops feeling confident, he's going to start sabotaging himself on accident because his delusions are just too powerful and too readily manifested, so that even if he has a bad delusion, it's just going to appear. Making my way through the pitch black tunnel all by myself, a tunnel in which something horrifying was apparently waiting for me. How could I not lose my nerve? Whispers in the back of my mind urged me to leave the tunnel this instant to find a way to Shibuya Station on the surface. But I didn't have that kind of time to lose. So in order to destroy any remaining fear I had, I thought of Rimi's smiling face. I thrusted my D-sword forward to illuminate the tunnel ahead of me. Problem was, its red glow only made the feelings of anxiety and foreboding even worse. Suddenly, something felt off. I felt like I'd caught a glimpse of something strange enough to make my gaze dart all around to try and find it. 10 meters ahead of me on the track, a small shadow was jutting out, one that hadn't been there a second ago. I squinted. Actually, it wasn't a shadow at all. Standing about 20 centimeters tall, it was a Sierra Tan figure. What? What the? Why would that be in a place like this? I was hit with a sense of whiplash. It was way too out of place. It was in a dim underground tunnel, one for train tracks that took people between stations. The general public didn't tend to go into the tunnels themselves, especially this deep. I was right in the center of them. And yet, the figure was there anyway. And it was the post-awakening version too, my absolute favorite, though her chest was pretty busted up. Wait a second. Was that my figure? The one I dropped during the chaos in Scramble Crossing yesterday? If it was, then how the heck had she ended up here? She was standing perfectly upright too, with a bewitching smile of hers aimed straight at me.
なんでセイラが
タッキーにはそう見えてるんだ
I heard a voice. The voice I always deluded was talking inside my head. Sarah's voice.
なんでもいいけどさ
Okay. So, that line she just said, so that's how you see me. So that's, like, there's something manifesting here. A person or a will. And our brain, you know, imposed its own image of her on us. And so it's like, maybe this has always been like a miniature Noah device that's been always trying to influence us. And it's just manifest as the figure. Okay. It happened in less than a second, faster than I could even blink. Sierra Tan, who should have been just a small figure, had instantly transformed into a life-size model. Then her smooth, silky, sexy body began to bend and twist just like a real person's. Her hair rustled around, her huge tits jiggled. Cool. Was this a delusion?
ねえタッキー遊ぼうよ
Okay. Oh, I heard another voice behind me. Whipping my head around in shock, I saw another life-size Sierra Tan standing there. Oh, this is gonna go bad quick. This is gonna go bad quick.
リミッチのことなんてほっといてさ
But it didn't end there. To my left, and to my right, the amount of Sierra Tans was slowly multiplying. They cascaded from the darkness. Just the sight alone sent a slight chill down my spine. The number of Sierra Tans had to be at least in the triple digits now. Oh my gosh.
私と気持ちいいことしよう
Well, that's horrifying. That's genuine nightmare fuel. Being beat up by your waifus. This is gonna go badly. And it's sad though that they mentioned like Rimi, like absolutely controlled by the Nozomi group. Now we have confirmation. Well, shoot. 100 Sierra Tans crowded around me and spoke in unison.
いっしょボケナス
Uh-huh. Laughing gleefully, one of the Sierra Tans in front of me charged at me. Then her slender arm swung her colossal metal bat. The impact was definitely real. My D-sword managed to take the brunt of the blow. It had been way too heavy of a strike. My hand started spasming before going numb. It all hurt like hell. That was when I realized it was all really happening. It wasn't just some delusion. It was reality, and they were real booted beings. And every single one of them was out for blood.
遊んでくれないとぶっ飛ばしちゃうぞ
僕の嫁なら道を開けて
やだ
それなら
I'd have to brute force my way through. I rightened my grip on my D-sword. The fiery emblem on my D-sword's hilt began to burn. Even more red light began to emanate from the blade. I slashed the sword, tearing right through my waifu. What a sacrifice. The blade was weightless, smooth in how it handled, and it drew whatever trajectory I wished it to. The blade bit into her shoulder before running through her body in its entirety. There had not been a shred of resistance when it came rending her flesh and bone. It had hardly taken any strength from me at all. Sierra's glamorous body split in half at an angle, her entrails piling out. She collapsed on the spot. God, that's horrifying. Even her organs had been perfectly reproduced. They glittered and shone with a pink gleam. I averted my gaze.
ごめんセイラ
I was gutting my favorite character with my own 2 hands. As an otaku, this was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. But still, I couldn't give up here.
強い強い。さすがタッキー。そんなタッキーが好き。
Oh boy.
もっと気持ちよくして。遊ぼうよ。めちゃくちゃにしてあげる。楽しい楽しい。
Suddenly, each and every one of the Sierras started speaking independently of one another. The flood of voices threatened to swallow me whole. I have to quit thinking of them as Sierra. That was what I had to tell myself, and so in order to keep moving forward, I swung my sword at Sierras, blocking my path.
どいてよ。
Rending the darkness with a single horizontal strike, a red beam blazed across the tunnel. The 4 Sierra Tans standing next to each other instantly turned into corpses.
タッキー。
Another one grabbed me from behind. She wrapped her arms around my neck in a chokehold, her large, supple boobs pressed against my back. What a way to go! Another Sierra tried to mount my leg. I quickly punctured her in the face with my D-sword. A cleanly cut, molten hole formed where her smile used to be. It was hard to breathe. My neck was being constricted. I was on the verge of suffocating.
浮気しちゃダメ。
Another metal bat was coming right at me, and I managed to writhe around enough to change position, and now my back was facing it. Ow. Felt Sierra's body shudder as her grip on my neck weakened.
リミッチのことなんて忘れて。
I shook her off my back, and then I whipped around, swiped with my D-sword. 3 pairs of Sierra Tan's legs came at me. My next strike would sever them at the thighs. The 3 of them plunged into the ground in perfect harmony. I stepped on their backs.
強い男って好き。
Oh my gosh. Sierra Tan started winding up her metal bat. I swung her sword down on her. This is just a nightmare. What a nightmare this would be. Her metal bat met with my D-sword. Only for me to carve straight through it, straight through the top of her head. No, my D-sword wasn't carving things. More than that, it would have been more accurate to say it evaporated anything that crossed within its trajectory. No matter how soft the object, no matter how solid the object, no matter how cold the object, no matter how hot the object, my blade instantaneously boiled and burned away anything it came in contact with, severing it from its source. These anime characters, all who had the same face, all who were calling my name in unison, who continued to attack me just for the sake of it. It made my hair stand on end. To try and rile myself up, I let out a huge scream. Then, aiming for the Sierra right in front of me, I plunged my sword straight into her chest.
タッキー。
Sierra grabbed onto my D-sword, and almost the exact same second, her hands evaporated.
熱いよ。
I lost all words. Dread began to climb up from the depths of my body. Chills ran down my back. My entire body stiffened. This wasn't Sierra. Sierra would never have turned against me.
タッキーのボケなす。
Oh, fetch. I heard the sound of several of my ribs being pulverized. I even felt the bones of my right arm creak, letting out a dull sound as they did. The blow resounded within my body, and then the sheer impact sent me flying. Smashed into a wall. My head collided directly with it. My vision warped and wavered.
腕組みしよう。
She rapidly swung her metal bat down on top of me, and I was getting bludgeoned. My left arm was minced from the elbow down. Even concrete wall was dented from the blow. Well, what are we supposed to do now? We're like dying.
タッキー、逃がさない。
Another metal bat swung straight into my leg. All strength left my right hand. The slightest movement caused a severe pain to scream out of my brain. But I ignored it. I swung my D-sword. My whole computer just flickered. What was that? I cleanly severed the oncoming metal bat, but the pain in doing so forced a groan from my mouth. I came within an arm's reach of the Sierra in front of me, impaled her torso with my D-sword, and tore my way through her. Her blood splattered my hands. Despite being just an anime character, her blood was incredibly warm. My mind went numb. Pain was all that ruled me now. I wanted to lock it all away, but I couldn't. As long as the pain endured, I would never be able to. So I'm at a loss of where this solution is going to be. I feel like these injuries are real. Copious amounts of clotted blood gushed from my flattened left hand. And it wasn't easy trying to hold on to the D-sword in my right either. The pain seemed to reverberate from my very bones. Pain so bad it felt like I was about to pass out. I realized my entire body was soaked with sweat. The droplets stung at my eyes. My vision was hazy, and more Sarahs approached from in front of me. The sound of their cheerful laughter reverberated deep within my ears, making my very eardrums vibrate. With my injuries, I doubted I'd live for more than a few hours. That thought suddenly came to me, but it didn't really matter. It was just a delusion anyway. A being that would blink out of existence just as quickly as if it blinked in. In the grand scheme of things, my injuries didn't really matter. I just needed to save Rimi. I just needed to destroy the Noah too. If this body could grant that, then I'd gladly give it all away. So...
道を開けてよ。
一緒にいようよ。
Her metal back came down on me again. I figured I'd be able to avoid it, but the fatigue and pain slowed my reaction considerably. I was struck right in the temple, and I could feel its enormous spikes tearing into my skull. The world shook, and my vision went black. Things became even darker than they already had been. I could no longer see anything at all. I tumbled over, and as I tumbled, my mind went for my right hand. It was exploding with pain, but I was able to reaffirm that my D-sword was still there. I swung out with my flattened left hand in an attempt to regain my footing. An exposed bone colliding with the ground. An impact akin to an electric shock ran through my entire body, causing me to black out for a second, but I regained consciousness soon after. My vision came back. It started to raise back up. The soles of my feet caught hold of the ground. Okay, this might even be the worst version of the image here. This is horror. This is horrible. Okay, so if we know these are delusions, because they have to be, right? Can't he unboot them somehow? Like, why can't he be like, no, you're not real and you can't hurt me? Like, why can't he manifest that as reality? Yeah, I'll hold the ground. Using the centrifugal force I've been blown away with, I charged into the horde of Sarahs and swung my right hand. My bones creaked. Freshly spilled blood burst out from the Sierras, and a stench of blood refused to leave my nostrils. Was it my blood? Sarah's blood? Who even knew? It was all blended together, and all I knew was that I was covered in blood and that the coat of red staining me had made my vision go blurry. I kept on carving into them. Who even knew just how many I'd cut down at this point? When would it end? In my mind, it was as if she'd multiplied infinitely. Sierra clung to my right hand. I swung both of her and my D-sword around. But she wouldn't let go. Instead, she bent my arm backward in a way it wasn't meant to go. My joint came out of its socket. All the strength left my arm. My D-sword hit the ground. Nausea welled up within my stomach, and I coughed and spluttered violently. Okay, where's this going? The taste of blood spread through my mouth. I was pretty sure my shattered ribs were puncturing my internal organs. Any and every kind of pain was eating away my body. I felt like I was going to go insane. But I was holding out hope. Couldn't help but hold out hope. I wanted to be set free, but I knew very well how impossible that was, so my hope was more wishful thinking than anything. With a big grin on her face, Sarah appeared at my face, and I drove my foot into her jaw as hard as I could. I forcibly channeled more strength into my right arm. All sensation in it was going numb. I felt as if my nerves were burning it to a crisp. My entire body was boiling. And now the pain in my bones was rippling, not just through my arm, but through my entire body. I was on the verge of shattering to pieces. Then I heard something that sounded like the growl of a beast, and for a moment I wondered whose voice it was, only to realize it was my own. The fingers on my right hand faintly shifted. I grabbed my D-sword and conjured a delusion. I pictured it being bound by a cord. It instantly became real. The sword was secured in my hand with a cord. I needed to move to get to where Rimi was, beyond this darkness. Okay, dude, you're manifesting reality, right? Why can't you just be more imaginative? It's the same problem you have with Hal in like the Green Lantern and the DC stories. Like, the idea is that he can manifest his imagination through the ring and use it to create weapons, armor, whatever. But it's inevitably almost always just a big fist. It's like for a man whose ability is literally wielding his imagination, he has the worst imagination, it seems, because there's almost never anything more interesting than like a fist or like, I don't know, a big rock or something stupid like that. Like, it could be so much more. I kind of think Taku's got the same problem here.
タッキー、どうして私と一緒にいてくれないの？
I sputtered out the blood that had gathered in my mouth. I was surrounded by heaps of Sarah corpses laying on the ground. Other Sarahs kicked past them on their way to me, producing ripples in the puddles of blood. I slowly shook my head.
だって、セーラは
I gritted my teeth.
アニメじゃないか。
There, yeah, see, that's what I thought. The very next second, every single Sarah morphed into 2D. The ones that were standing became life-size cardboard cutouts. The corpses lying on the ground became covers for body pillows. They had all returned home, back to the realm of 2D. Not a single one of them moved again anymore.
チリは、チリに帰らなきゃ。僕も、後で行くよ。
And something of a moment of silence for the girls, I briefly hung my head over the wreckage. In the back of my mind, I was thinking that the gory, blood-stained Sarah body pillow covers definitely wouldn't sell well. I was on the brink of passing out, but I managed to stave it off by biting my lip hard. And then I started walking through the dark tunnel once again. How are you alive, dude? Or are the injuries also now gone? I don't get that. That's the stuff that blows my mind. It's like, are you injured? I ended up at a dilapidated building near Shibuya Station's east entrance. The surrounding scenery was dotted with partly or entirely collapsed buildings, leaving the building here as the sole intact survivor. On the way to the dome of the roof planetarium that had closed down 7 years ago. Wheezing my lungs out, I ascended the deserted stairwell to the top floor. I made my way through the unattended lobby into the planetarium before I took a breather at the gargantuan device that had jumped into my sight. It was Noah 2 in all its majesty, surrounded by chilly air and robbed me of my warmth. A piece of art stood beside Noah 2.
Rimi.
Yeah, I had a feeling. Rimi, affixed to the art piece, slowly raised her head at my voice. Yeah, again, it's like, it's his, like, I think it's his D-sword, but he uses it as, like, a trap contraption. Our eyes met. I don't like where this is going. Her eyes shot open. Her eyes began to swim. She shook her head sadly. Because I've fallen in love with you. I'm in love with you, Rimi. But I couldn't say that out loud. I couldn't say anything heroic like I'm here to save you because I'm in love with you. Not with how I was, not covered in blood and completely flattened arm. My current state was far from Prince Charming as humanly possible. If I said something like that now, I'd probably look creepy as hell. That'd put me closer to a stalker than anything else. I don't know, dude. I'm pretty sure he'd look pretty cool. If I spilled my guts to her in some speech and didn't let her get a word in, it would have just put her way off. She was going to live and I was going to die. Having some dead man walking convey all his feelings on a whim would have left a horrible taste in her mouth. So I bottled it all in. My right hand was still weak, but the hand I'd been using to hold my D-sword desperately forcing my fingers to move. I reached inside my jacket pocket and pulled out a handkerchief. It was colored a gentle vermilion. Whether it was the original hue or due to my blood staining it, I didn't know. Rimi had given it to me. Though its floral aroma had long since expired, the handkerchief was one of several precious memories she'd given me.
僕は君をここから助け出してノア2を壊してこのハンカチを返すんだ。
That was all I was capable of doing, and if I managed to achieve it all, I could die with no regrets. Besides, there wasn't much else I could do. In my mind, every sense of mine had gone numb a long time ago. I imagined that the reason for that was because the pain was so severe, my brain had no choice but to start blocking the sensation transmitted by whatever nerves were responsible. I could barely move, my arm continued to bleed, my vision was blurry. I was incredibly cold, and I had a feeling that if I wasn't careful, I'd lose consciousness right then and there.
Yeah.
A towering man emerged from behind Noah 2, Norose Genichi. Facing me, he clapped sarcastically, with no clear expression on his face.
しかし、致命的なことが一つあります。行動原理が感情に根ざしているということです。それは野蛮人のすることだ。
Oh, I'm sure. Even though you absolutely will use your emotions to, use the emotions to control people. It's like, he wields what he calls barbarism as a weapon. I had no idea what he was getting at. It took everything I had just to bear with the pain, so aside from Rimi, I didn't have any brain power left to try and comprehend what anyone was saying.
Nigete.
小を犠牲にして大の利益を守る。それを悪だと思いますか？私はそうは思いません。このままでは人類はいずれ滅び去る。
Yeah, well, you're not gonna help it with what you're doing.
人の欲望によってです。
Oh, so I guess that's the argument. And it's actually what we see manifest in the descriptions of the Alpha World line in Steins Gate with Okabe. It's the idea that by stripping people of their ability to make a lot of choices, you can kind of guarantee that everyone survives. But the idea is like you sacrifice the ability for free choice, freedom, and will in order to preserve people and keep them safe. And it's like, is that really worth it in the end?
あまりにも醜い心。あまりに利己的な欲望の洪水。人の社会はすでに破綻し、腐り落ちようとしています。誰もが己のことしか考えず、その結果殺し合い、奪い合っています。君もギガロマニアックスとして覚醒したのなら見たはずですよ。人の心の本質を。私は幼い頃に覚醒したため、もう何十年という間、それを見てきた。
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's his D sword right there.
300人委員会は人類の自滅を阻止するためという大義名分のもと、世界人間牧場計画を推し進めてきました。
The Worldwide Human Domestication Project. Yeah, that's the one we see in the Alpha World line of Steins Gate.
けれどそれも所詮、彼らのエゴを満たすものでしかない。私が目指すのはそんなものではありません。悟ったのですよ。この腐った世界を再生するためには、社会のシステムを変えるのではなく、
Okay.
世界中すべての人間の心を変える必要があるのだと。そのためのプロジェクトノアです。ノア2があれば世界中すべての人間から負の妄想を消し去り、清廉な心へと漂白できます。
Okay, interesting. He wants to cleanse their negative delusions. I don't know, though. I think he brought up, like, what did I say last time? I talked about how, like, love is, like, it's one of the best delusions because, like, there's very, very little, like, evidence to support love. Like, you can argue, like, the actions of other people would be your proof of love, but the idea is that the motivation behind those actions is probably a delusion. I think the delusion is also similar to what a parent experiences with their child. When you have a child, it changes your priority from, your instinct of like self-preservation kind of shifts into protect the children, and becomes this and to the point where you'd be willing to throw away your own life and sacrifice your own life in order to preserve theirs. That has to be a delusion as well. It's a self-delusion, but this idea of being able to juxtapose like actively harming yourself or putting yourself in harm's way in the name of protecting others is a delusional aspect. If he purges of humanity of all delusion, I don't think we would be human anymore. Like he's trying, like, so it'd be like in order to save people, he would destroy what makes them people. Almost like, okay, good example. It'd be like trying to say that in order to preserve a car from ever getting into an accident or having its parts wear down and break down because you love this car, you take its wheels off. It still has an engine that can run, it still has all the components that can move, but is it still a car when all it can do is like activate an engine that impotently spins an axle that has no bearing or ability to do anything that actually makes a car a car? I think that's what he's going to do with people. He's going to take away their ability to facilitate movement or to like use the delusions that are like that motivate us beyond just simply existing, and turn everyone into vegetables. So at that point, would we even be human? Maybe we could march to his marching orders and a seeming human, and he could try and convince himself that they're still human. But at that point, like if there's literally no desire, if there's literally no delusion, if there's literally no motivation, because that's the other thing too, is like another delusion is a vision of the future. Could a farmer actually farm if they couldn't delude themselves into picturing the beautiful like rows of crops that they're going to grow by putting these little tiny seeds into the ground and watering them daily for months? Like that takes a delusion too. You take away that delusion, how are we supposed to survive? Because the only thing we can believe in would be what we literally see in front of us. No, like his plan seems absolutely insane. Like more insane even than the Council 300 plan. The Council 300 plan is taking away people's free will. But it's not perfect because it doesn't get into their heads. It just simply is about controlling and manipulating people. Still wrong, still evil, but at least they were still people because they could still rise up and rebel. That's the future that they had. That there are people who still were motivated to try and break free and to exert their own feelings and passion. If he actually is able to purge delusion, he says negative delusion, but I don't think it can be that like easy to distinct what the difference between a negative and a positive delusion. Heck, even in our gameplay, how many times I click the positive delusion and it devolved into a negative one. So if he truly is able to purge that, I think he would just eliminate what makes people human.
争いは消え、世界に永遠の平和を与えることができます。君も誰かに蔑まれることもなくなるでしょう。
Finally, his novel-length monologue came to a close. My body was on the verge of collapse, but I desperately planted my feet. At least I'd gotten a bit of a break. That was the only reason I was still standing.
あんたの言ってることはもしかしたら正しいかもしれない。
Okay. I hadn't really been paying much attention, but in regards to the future of humanity, he was definitely right. His ideals were entirely righteous. He was the president of a sprawling corporation, and his eyes were aimed solely for justice for the whole of mankind. Yeah, but like, he's also completely insane. Me, meanwhile, I was a monster, a virgin, an otaku freak, a selfish, ego-driven wannabe who just wanted to save some girl he liked and didn't give a crap about anyone else. Normally, that'd make me the bad guy through and through, the monster that would be that would then be slain and justice would prevail.
でも僕はあんたには負けられない。
なぜ否定するのです？
ただの自己満足だ。
残念です。
His gaze locked onto me. Notice grabbed Rimi by the collar and threw her off the art piece. His right hand then stretched out in front of it. God, that thing's huge. Like even for a D sword, it's huge. And in that ephemeral moment, the once standing art piece found itself in Norose's hand. It was no mere art piece; it was a cross that existed for crucifixion. Oh, look at that! It has like a thing in it now. It was a D sword. It was far too monstrous to be called a sword. Savagery. Gelidity. I don't know what that word is. And that which sowed terror. A contaminated gospel. Chaos thoroughly complexified. A blasphemy with which to desecrate. The purest of evils. And akin to the very gates of hell themselves, the hearts of those who gazed upon it would be wrenched away, luring them into an eternal aeon of strife. All that was negative in the world converged into one, embodying its very shape. I gulped back all the saliva that had been built up in my throat. Despite everything, I made up my mind. I fixed my grip on my D-sword, which was still bound in my hand with a cord, and then I took a single step toward Noah 2. Or more accurately speaking, I began to close the distance between Norose and myself. Speaking of distance, he had an overwhelming advantage in range over me. Alright, got some decent pictures for this thumbnail. Not sure which one I'm going to go for.
剣で切り合うような野蛮な行為はあまり得意ではないのですがね。
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
しかし、君からコードサンプルを手に入れる必要があります。そのために無力化しなければね。
Towering over me with one hand, notice I swung a D-sword even bigger than he was. His strike was so heavy it felt as if it could pulverize any known object out there. My arm was slow to respond, even moving it slightly made pain exploded through it. Even still, I forced it to do so and raised my arm. I caught the blow with the D-sword. A normal sword would have been split right in two. And that wasn't even accounting for how unbelievably thin my sword was. It couldn't have been more different from Norose's. Yet, my D-sword didn't break. Somehow I'd managed to parry Norose's first strike. My hand went numb. With my left hand pulverized, my balance on that side was non-existent. The stance I've been holding collapsed. By the look of it, he was about to send me flying. Just had to endure it. I connected with Norose's second blow. His recovery between strikes was way too fast. I don't know, like, I guess I'm also recovering too. Like, I know he's not in any good physical state anymore, but it's odd to me that, like, he was able to be so efficient and so deadly in Scramble Crossing. Remember how he's, like, throwing his D-sword around and, like, impaling stuff from, like, hundreds of feet away and being able to guide it with his thoughts? Why can't he do that here and stab his sword straight through the Noah too? Like, it could be done so fast, I almost feel like he could survive. And, like, the sad thing is his best time to do it might be when this guy's about to strike him down, because then he wouldn't be able to respond. Don't be misled by how his sword looks. That's what I told myself. It was a battle of strength between a sword that was far too thin and delicate and a sword that was far too colossal and ferocious. Somehow I was holding out with it, at least for the moment. Ooh. Look at this picture. Dang. Get down. Get out of there. Look at that. Woo-wee. That's the spice right there. 4 times now. 4 times that our blades crossed, but this time the position of Norose's hands began to change. It looks as if he's clutching the guard of the sword now. And then his sword began to writhe. Letting out an eerie noise, its malleable mechanism groaned. The blade's edges then split in two, opening up into a pair of scissors that was then thrust toward my chest.
Huh?
That alteration, right then, I came to realize it would mean the end of me. But Rimi! I countered, swinging my sword down in front of me. But I was too late. Ooh. Its forked point sank straight into my chest. A callous smile formed across his lips. He loosened his grasp on the guard. And the colossal scissors snapped shut. My chest, my ribs, and my lungs were all devoured. I desperately stumbled back. And right when I did that, Noah swept his arm straight across. My own fresh blood danced before my eyes. Pain spiked through my entire body. Even though my senses were supposed to have been numbed, I was on the verge of screaming out with whatever remained in my lungs, but even so, I clenched my teeth and endured it. My chest had been thoroughly minced. If not for stepping back when I did, he would have hit my heart. Massive quantities of blood continued to spray out. I nearly toppled over, but I caught myself at the last second. How? How are you standing? I can't die here. I didn't come this far just to die. I ignored Norose. Instead of him, I approached Noah 2 and Rimi, the latter of which was collapsed on the ground. It took every fiber of my being, but I did it all the same. Raising her head from the ground, Rimi looked in my direction. She was likely exhausted. There was no way her body had any strength left. As fatigue or maybe my injuries continued to weigh me down, my vision grew blurred, and I wasn't sure what sort of face Rimi was making as she looked at me. I didn't meet her gaze. I couldn't bear it for her to see me like this, bloody and beaten to a pulp. That was the sole minuscule bit of pride I had left, even on my deathbed. That's where I drew the line. Advancing toward Noah 2, my D-sword was already within range. Oddly enough, Norose stayed behind me, ignoring that I was leaving him behind. Oh, it's that song. All of a sudden, the cheery melody began to ring throughout the dome. You may pass. Noah 2 towered over me. Sound emanating from it became even more shrill. Deep within all its majesty, I sensed something incredibly strange and enigmatic moving around. For a split second, I flinched, albeit slowly. Imagine take a stance with my blade at my hip and aim toward the Noah 2's nearly organic-looking tube-covered exterior. And bulldozed it with my D-sword. That was when I noticed, at some point or another, Noah 2 had vanished from my sight, and now somehow I was standing with my back to it. I knew for a fact that I'd just been trying to destroy it. There wasn't a single darn reason for me to have turned around. And yet that was the direction I was facing. In the very center of my blurred vision, Norose was the one standing there, not Noah 2. I turned myself around, swinging my D-sword at it for a second time. Except even though I'd fully intended to turn around, I hadn't. I had the will to turn myself around. I'd even made the motion to do so, and yet the end result was one where I hadn't actually turned around. I was hit with a wave of utter confusion.
NOAH 2の自己防衛機能とでも言うべきものです。
Oh, lovely. Norase's quiet voice resounded from within the dome, pooling and mixing together with the melody of You May Pass.
近づく者の心に干渉し、意志を歪ませる。NOAH 2には誰も近寄れません。私以外。
When he finished speaking, he leisurely walked closer to me. And then, as if it was the easiest thing in the world, he raised the colossal D-sword above his head. I clenched my teeth. I lost a lot of blood. I couldn't think clearly. Even though I didn't have the slightest bit of sensation in my right hand, I shuddered the pain and the fact that I couldn't move it properly aside and lifted it up in a desperate attempt to deflect the next blow. And then the D-sword that somehow still remained attached to my hand with the cord was sent flying by a staggering impact. It tumbled across the floor, far, far away from me. It was astonishing seeing it off. Fixing my gaze back in front of me, I was met with Norose's sneering figure. And then, as if to urge my mind forward, the melody changed.
君の存在を否定してあげましょう。
Oh gosh. Norase's stance told me that he had already prepared to strike again. He was about to bring that sword crashing down on me. It was all too overwhelming, all too devastating, all too brutal. That's when his D-sword, and it was coming down at me while I was completely unarmed, and I had no way of stopping his strike. I was a sitting duck. Rimi forced her way between Norose and me. Her softened touch enveloped my face. I felt Rimi's chest. She had wrapped her arms around me almost like a tender embrace. She was protecting me from Norose. Norose sighed quietly, lowering his sword. Rimi had saved me once again, even though I told her I was here to save her. How fetching pathetic was that? Yet with a wave of intense frustration, I slithered my right hand onto her body and thrust it inside her blouse.
Taku.
Why? Felt the sensation of the coarse, warm underwear lying atop her skin. What the fetch are you doing? Then I felt the pain of the gashes in my chest, and the pain of the amputated left hand, and the pain of my dislocated right arm. Then the pain of my dysfunctional lungs as I struggled to breathe. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. She's another gigamaniac. Can he heal himself somehow, or like revert himself? But the warmth I'd felt now, surely it could heal all of it. Oh, he's diluting. He's gonna dilute himself. The touching the holy pantsuit is going to heal him. Rimi's underwear, Rimi's bare skin. I tore off the buttons on her blouse, ripped away the clothing that was keeping her body hidden away from me. What are you doing, dude? Alright, so I feel like we're having an edited version here, but let's see. I exposed her bra. What is happening? I grabbed her tightly, right through her bra, reaching her ample breast. Why? With my blood-smeared right hand, I squeezed her. I rubbed her body with my blood, her bra, her bare skin. I felt its elasticity, such soft, tender skin. Remy writhed around in an attempt to escape, but I grabbed her tightly and didn't let go. I plunged my face into her breast, and her skin was so velvet and so comfortable, it was as if it was drawing me in. Then with my free right hand, I began to grope beneath her skirt. Why? What is happening? I don't like this. With a gasp, I got off her. When I realized what I'd been trying to do, I was genuinely shocked. Even though I'd gotten off of her, Remy tightly clutched her chest and continued to sob sadly. But she'd been protecting me. Why had I done that? Why the heck had I done that? Especially at the time like this. Why was I the one making Remy cry?
本当は咲畑リミを犯したいんでしょ。
What? Who said that? My own voice echoed within my mind. Shocked, I swallowed back my saliva. What was so shocking to me? The fact that he was right? Because he'd seen through me, but who was he to begin with? It was my own voice, my inner voice, my true nature?
ここで物にしておかないと将軍に寝取られちゃうよ。
What the fetch, dude? What is this? He's got like an evil dark twin?
あんなしわくちゃ野郎にリミはやられちゃうんだよ。寝取られるなんて嫌じゃねえ。
What the fetch?
まあもうすでにやられちゃってる可能性もあるけどさ。
My true nature continued whispering to me, "Stop it. Stop saying this. I don't believe a single word you're saying." I couldn't cover my ears even if I wanted to, considering my lack of left hand. Remy was just lying there, sobbing, unable to fix her messy clothes. Just seeing her face like that shattered my heart.
片思いでいいとか綺麗事言ってないでさ。
Oh boy.
犯
Oh
しちゃえ。
boy. What the fetch, dude?
ノロセはそれをする時間ぐらい待ってくれるってよ。どうせ僕はもうすぐ死ぬんだ。恨まれたってへでもないって。やりたいことやって死のうよ。僕のこのかわいそうな境遇ならここでちょっとひどいことやったってしょうがなかったで許されるよ。
Fetch me. It's like he's hearing his id directly, like the worst part of himself. That's disgusting. It was just a delusion, something that was a bad habit of mine. Things could take a turn for the worse if I didn't stop listening to the current, and the current would drag me away. My weak-minded nature was luring me down the path of least resistance toward a really bad path, but I couldn't let it drag me away, not now.
それにリミは僕に同情してくれてた。それならむしろやらしてくれるべきだ。
What incel Reddit brain is this? That's so gross. Ugh.
犯せよ。死ぬ前に童貞捨てようよ。
God, I want to stick. Can I stab this thing?
ダメだ!
I screamed to shatter my weak mind, to blow straight to hell. Luckily, it seemed to have worked. Remy had even stopped crying. She lowered her hands, covering her face, and then she glared at me with ice-cold eyes.
つまんない男。
Those few words were all it took for my mind to be swallowed by a cascade of dark emotions. Wait a second, this all must be a delusion. What's happening right now? And as I swung myself at Remy, with staggering force, an enormous stake burst straight up from the concrete floor. The sharp edge of the stake pierced straight into my crotch. Oh, fetch me. Couldn't comprehend what was going on. My legs were floating in the air. Even if I wanted to run away, I couldn't. The stake gradually tore its way further and further into my body. It was excruciatingly painful, but not enough to kill me. The stake continued to grow, lifting me a whole meter into the air. Any form of movement sent a jolt of pain through my groin. It was completely unable to move. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna be okay after this. Someone save me. I casted pleading eyes down toward Rimi. But without even looking at me, she walked straight up to Nodose's side. Then, as if exhausting all strength, she crouched to the ground. Both Nodose and Rimi simply stared at me, at the mortifying display. Neither of them had any form of expression as they watched. Neither of them had any interest in saving me.
知っていますか？かつて拷問刑として串刺しは世界中のあちこちで用いられていました。
And that's true.
この拷問の特徴は死ぬまで3日ほどかかるということです。自らの体重によって徐々にその杭は体に食い込んでいく。ポイントは杭の先端はそれほど尖らせないことです。それにより臓器を傷つけることがなくなり、死ぬまでの期間が延びるわけです。最終的に杭の先端が口や肩から突き破れば処刑は終了。
Dang.
見守っていてあげますよ。3日間。あなたが死ぬまでね。彼女も同じ考えのようですし。
Rumi nodded in response to his words.
もっともその前に胸や腕の傷のせいで失血死に至る方が早いかもしれませんが。
It's a delusion, a delusional attack. That's what I told myself. In reality, I wasn't really impaled. It was just still standing there in front of Noah too. It was only hallucinating. Believing that to be true, I had to believe it. 3 days, 72 hours, 4,320 minutes, 259,200 seconds. If I can endure it for that long, the delusion will end. It has to. If I just sleep for a bit or pass out, it'll go by a lot quicker. Those were my thoughts. But I couldn't do either of those things. The pain wouldn't let me, and that was exactly what made it such a pure, unrelenting torture. I was gonna go insane if this went on. Even though only a moment ago I'd been thinking about trying to endure it, I'd spiraled straight into despair. Considering the extreme amount of time left before my death, despair was the sole emotion that hadn't drained directly out of me. Just kill me already. How much time had passed? Didn't see a clock, so I had no clue. I wanted to see a clock, but I knew that if I did see one, the hands sluggishly ticking would probably shatter my spirit completely. I clenched my teeth, sweat was oozing off my body in droves. Thanks to that, my throat had gone dry, moistened it by swallowing the blood that was trickling in. Inside my body, I could feel the stake continuously shoving aside my internal organs as it wedged itself deeper into me. I could feel it very clearly, like a countdown to my inevitable death. Soon enough, it arrived at my chest, and at that, it pierced through my throat. It skewered me straight through the mouth. Where is this supposed to go? The pain and the shock was pushing my sanity to its limits. The pain kept me in a 5-minute cycle of passing out, waking up, then passing back out again. I came to understand something. Every time I fainted, my body would go limp, and the stake dug into me even faster. Naturally, the pain grew so uncomparable levels when that happened, then it would wake me back up. Unable to move, my body would writhe in torment, then I'd pass out again to escape the pain, and the gruesome cycle would repeat itself. Even when I was conscious, I was entirely in a daze. It seemed the pain had somehow faded a little too. My vision had gone dim. Was it nighttime? Not that it mattered, considering the lack of windows in the dome. I suppose it was probably because of how much blood I'd lost. Blood trickled from my chest to my arms, albeit not a whole lot. If I kept dripping out, maybe I could die peacefully from that instead of being impaled. Realizing that, I attempted to swing around my left arm, hardly any of which remained below the elbow. But it didn't even twitch. No doubt my nerves were already dead. Ha ha ha. Was it really a delusion? When was it going to end? Would it ever actually end? What had made me believe it was a delusion to begin with? How could I know it was a delusion? What if it was all reality? If I endured it, I'd just die anyway. Enduring it didn't mean crap. But I was enduring it anyway? That was stupid. Only a dummy would do that. I was an idiot. Die, not the hell kill yourself kind. No, actually effing die. I should die right now. I was sick of all the pain. I was sick of all the suffering. Bite your tongue off. Do that and you'll be at peace soon after. Just let me out of here. This was all a delusion, right?
死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ痛い死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ痛い死ぬ死ぬ
I was hoping to have a good day today. I was hoping for that, you know? My chest continued to hemorrhage. I couldn't breathe. No matter how much oxygen I tried to suck in, my throat would only make a stupid wheezing sound. I looked down, only to be met with a stake peeking through the hole in my chest. Struggling for oxygen as my mouth flapped open and shut, I violently vomited out blood. The fact that I was about to die brought me peace of mind.
そろそろですね。
It was Notice's voice. The bee was right in front of me. But I couldn't see him. In fact, I couldn't see a thing. Being impaled had left me in so much agony for so long, I'd completely forgotten about both him and Rimi. I couldn't help but wonder if Rimi was still close by, though it didn't really matter. I was too occupied with trying to breathe. For a good while now, I'd been dedicating every nerve and every last ounce of strength toward just doing that.
君が無事死ぬ前に彼女を始末しておきましょう。
I wasn't exactly sure what he was talking about, nor did I have the chance to think about it.
私を殺すの？
へえ、そういうことです。遺言をどうぞ。
ごめん、タク。タクのこと助けてあげられなかった。
I heard Rimi's final scream, then the sound of someone toppling over. I imagined that Rimi had been shot and killed. I didn't feel a single pang of emotion. Something else took priority. I returned to working on breathing. And then I felt shock at how I'd done that. What was the meaning in any of this? Why did I struggle so hard to keep on breathing? Wasn't it just too much? Something hot streamed down my cheeks. I was probably crying, but there wasn't any way to be sure of that. I tried my best to endure everything that I'd been dealt with so far, but so close to the 3-day limit, the meaning of doing so had been entirely lost. I'm sorry, Rimi. I should have been the one to apologize. I couldn't protect you. There wasn't any point in living anymore. Let my body go limp. The weight of that caused my body to sink even deeper. Felt a foreign object working its way up my throat. Breathing became impossible. Something was driving itself up through me. I came back to my senses. The feeling of a foreign object in my throat disappeared. I wasn't impaled anymore. The only blood on me was from my left arm and chest. When did the reality end and delusion begin? My brain couldn't begin to process it fast enough. I didn't understand a thing about the sensation. In front of me was Norose, D-sword raised.
帰ってきましたか。あなたが体験した3日間は現実では1秒しか経っていませんが。
やっぱり妄想。
After muttering that to myself in relief, Notice's D-sword flashed as fast as lightning. My body's top and bottom halves began to fall out of alignment. My vision fell. It sank downward even though my legs were still standing right there. Everything above my waist toppled to the floor. My torso had been clean off. The cross section was all too beautiful to behold.
Huh?
I inexplicably fixed my gaze on my lower half. It was a reality I didn't want to accept, or was it just another delusion? If it was, that would have been nice. Please be a delusion. Rimi was calling me, in a voice that seemed so sad. She was calling me.
その状態でも死ぬまで数分は持つはずです。 元医師である私が言うのだから確かですよ。その間にコードサンプルを取ることにしましょうか。
I crawled, dragging my body away with my right armed hand alone, headed straight for Rimi's voice. I want to feel you there, Rimi. Have to save you, Rimi. I dragged myself forward with my right hand, then again and again. I reached out, but I had no idea where Rimi was. I didn't reach her. I didn't reach anything at all.
しぶとい男だ。
Crunch. Felt my bones grind to dust. Noticed a dress shoe trampled my outstretched right hand.
さすが化け物と言うべきですか。
そののろせの足が蜃気楼のように揺れた。
Okay, now what's changed?
床のタイルの模様がぼんやりとし始めて、天地が回転する。床と天井が逆になる。僕は天井に這いつくばっている。両断された腰からものすごい勢いで血が噴き出す。全開にした蛇口のように血が体から抜けていく。そのまま腕の傷口を通って内臓までが流れ出る。
He talked about being able to live for a few minutes. That's not possible. Like, you lose way too much blood. My consciousness surged far, far away.
でも完全には途切れない。血だまりができて、僕はその深紅の海に身を横たえている。ドクン、ドクンと鼓動する心臓が僕の目の前に転がっていて、血だまりに波紋を作り、その波紋をぼんやり見ていたら、僕の形が崩れた。人としての形を維持できない。僕と世界との境界が消失する。肉が溶け、骨がゴムのように曲がり、眼球は四角になり、口から裏返った灰がこぼれ出し、神経は数万キロメートルも引っ張られ、脳はシワの一つ一つを丁寧に伸ばされ、体はブヨブヨになる。空気に溶けていく。右手が糸のように伸びて、プラネタリウムを出ていく。それは飴細工のように、渋谷の空をさまよって、コーネリアスタワーにくるくる巻きつく。何度も、何度も、何度も。
Okay. What the fudge is happening?
分かれた足が膨れてる。ブクブクと水風船みたい。パンパンに皮膚が伸びて、ギチギチ音を立ててる。液状化、肉も骨もとろけてふくらはぎに溜まってる。腰からニョキって小さな頭が生えて、
Are you regrowing yourself?
ぎょろりとした白い目が僕を見たよ。そしたら僕の頭がぐしゃって潰された。どっちの頭かはよくわかんない。潰れてトロトロになって、ビルの床、コンクリートの分子の隙間を抜けて、
Okay.
落ちていく。地上へ、ビューって。
What is happening? I'm going crazy. Who wrote
地
this?
面に作るどろりとした脳みその水たまり。もぞもぞもごもごじゅるじゅるドロドロプルプルビヨンビヨンビチャビチャぐじゅぐじゅぐちゃりぐちゃり。僕は二つになる。二つが四つになる。四つが八つになる。八つが四つに。二つが八つに。四つが四つに。どんどん増えて、どんどん減る。僕がいっぱい。僕がいない。僕は何？僕って何？何って僕？僕？何？何区がナボに？ナボになく？ぼな。
君は妄想なんかじゃないよ。
れだ。
見てごらん。
Okay.
西条七海が祈る。兄と共に収容された病院。怪我人があふれた待合室の片隅にうずくまり。
So, okay, I'm trying to pick myself up from what just happened. Okay, so we're getting communication, and this might be Shogun reaching out, trying to have a Hail Mary pass, because as a delusion, we might be able to constitute ourselves by our existence, right? It's about other giglomaniacs recognizing a delusion's real for it to manifest as reality. So maybe what he's going to do is he's going to have us acknowledge the reality that we are in the eyes of other giglomaniacs, and that's going to allow us to get back? Maybe?
実の兄のしわくちゃの手を握りしめて、右手の痛みに耐えて、目を閉じて、祈る。もう一人の兄の無事を。
Aww.
楠木優愛が祈る。倒壊したビルの瓦礫。そこに埋もれるように横たわるコンテナの中で、彼の美少女フィギュアの一つを握りしめて、
Oh, she found one of our things.
地震と火事で醜く変形してしまったフィギュアたちの姿に感じた胸の痛みに耐え、目を閉じて祈る。
Aww.
彼女を許してくれた少年の無事を。
That's very sweet.
岸本綾瀬が祈る。避難所となっている水明学園。その校舎の屋上で空を見上げて、神話が書かれた文庫本を握りしめて、崩壊した渋谷を覆う不特定多数の妄想が見せる悪意の痛みに耐え、目を閉じて祈る。彼女の歌を、彼女の話を聞いてくれた少年の無事を。
Okay.
折原梢が祈る。新鮮駅の薄暗いホーム、青い瀬名の震える手を握りしめて、
Aww.
足の傷の痛みに耐えて、目を閉じて祈る。心の声で語り合ったクラスメートの少年の無事を。 青い瀬名が祈る。横たわる父の傍らに座り、父の冷たくなった手を握りしめて、最後まで素直になれなかった後悔の痛みに耐えて、
Aww.
目を閉じて祈る。 彼女のお願いに不器用ながら答えようとしてくれた少年の無事を
Rimi.
咲畑リミが祈る。冷たい床に横たわりながら彼へ伸ばした自らの手をきつく握りしめて傷だらけの彼の姿を見て感じた。締め付けられるような胸の痛みに耐えて目を閉じて祈る。自分が守ろうとした自分を助けに来てくれた少年の無事を。
Yeah. Alright. Can that be enough? Can that confirm our existence again?
僕は何もできなかった。君が行動したんだ。その結果として、みんなが君のことを見てきた。君という周囲共通認識は、
Use for recognition.
とっくに出来上がっているんだ。これからは、いや、もうすでに、君こそが、
僕
You are.
僕は
You are.
君は誰？僕はその声が聞こえた瞬間に
Oh boy. Zoom. He coalesces?
意識が僕を固定した。ぐ
Yes!
ちゃぐちゃにかき回されていた世界が
Oh!
収束する。
Thank freaking goodness.
僕の理想度を形作って収束する。僕は僕としての形に戻る。世界は世界としての形に戻る。僕は
I am me.
僕だ。
I am. I exist. He's becoming like he's becoming more real than reality. I can see clearly now. All my wounds had healed. My top, my bottom halves are connected. I was standing on my own 2 feet. The pain was entirely gone. Sincerity filled my heart.
妄想によく打ち勝ったね。僕の最後の力を、君に託すよ。
I noticed Rimi at the edge of my vision. She was okay. She was looking at me. Tears were falling down her face. Don't cry. Summoning my strength, I grasped my D-sword's hilt. Ascertaining my feeling, my arms worked better than ever. I had completely regenerated.
これは実に興味深いですよ。この化け物。
Yeah, no, yeah, we're pretty much not real, but real, and more real somehow. I focused my eyes on Norase.
確かに僕は化け物だよ。でもこれが
Yeah. So I can rescue Rimi, so I can destroy Noah too.
僕が望んだ妄想だ。
Now we'll fight with our delusion. Norase's response was swift. He had yet to harvest the code sample from Nishijo Takumi. The delusion was supposed to have cornered the boy and shattered his psyche, but now the tables had turned. And that he could not allow. Norase closed the gap between himself and Takumi. Takumi, taking a specific angle, he swung his D-sword from below. With a D-sword that could cleave any known object, he diagonally carved through Takumi's chest. The target's durability made no difference. Killing a person with it was as simple as slicing through a block of gelatin. With one quick swipe from Norase, Takumi's body was split to pieces. His head, right arm, and right shoulder all sliced cleanly off his body. Here's the thing, though. What if he said before that the only person who could approach Norase 2 was him, right? All you have to do is make him think that he's attacking Taku when he's actually attacking Noah 2, and it's done. We got him. Internal organs littered the floor, but not a single drop of blood fell with them. The lower half of Takumi's body began to give way. He braced himself and managed to implant his feet. The following moment, the cross-section of his wound began to undulate and squirm. A bubbling noise ensued, and then he regenerated. Even though his body had been cleaved apart mere seconds ago, already a new head, right arm, and shoulders had born. His held head and internal organs remained where they had slid free from him.
痛覚は遮断した。
With a single step, Takumi approached Nodose. Nodose clicked his tongue, then turned over his D-sword.
肉体の形を捨てたがゆえに、いかなる形をも取れるということですか。
あんたの見せてくれた妄想のおかげだよ。
He was unable to retain his shape as a human being. He'd taken on delusion and made it his own. This was not regeneration, but replacement. Missing parts replenished, flesh and bone were produced once again, all propagating infinitely with the dust within his body. His shape was not fixed. Like an amoeba, like a collection of slime, he could change himself freely. That was the reason Takumi called himself a monster. Takumi took yet another step toward Nodose. Nodose's frustration increased. Gripping the hilt, he thrust his D-sword at the approaching Takumi. Takumi's head found itself between a colossal pair of scissors.
脳を失えば妄想はできないでしょう。
He already doesn't have a brain, though, does he? He's they called him like an amoeba. Takumi's head was crushed, split like a watermelon. Blood and gray matter burst forth. Everything above the neck was gone, and yet Takumi's body remained. Regeneration, replacement, it was instantaneous. As soon as his heel hit the ground, as if nothing had happened. As if he had been entirely replaced. His head returned right to where it had been without a single scratch. Nodose awakened to an understanding. He could not win this fight. Physical attacks with his D-sword are useless. The delusional attack at denying the boy's reason for existence had been taken in and used for an alternative purpose. The current Nishijo Takumi was all too removed from human normalcy. All too distorted of an existence. All too fitting of a monster. And yet, despite it all, Nodose had no intention of conceding. His next thought was to utilize Notu's power to bombard Takumi with innumerable antiparticles. Bombardment with antiparticles could transform any known existence into negative matter and ending ultimately in self-collapse. If disruption from the surface was not viable, then collapse must be undertaken from within.
そうなんだね。
Nodose's thoughts had been read by Takumi. The shine of Takumi's D-sword transformed from red to black. A black flame enveloped the blade, its wriggling forth extending outward. Its shape resembled that of a dark colossal serpent.
そして現れるのよ。
Oh? The prophecy? It roamed throughout the dome as if constrained by it. Toward the ceiling, toward the floor, as though it was licking them up, and though it was scraping them away. It simply consumed.
写真の黒き大樹。あらゆる崩壊を飲み込み、邪神王の身を砕くことのできる。糖質にして、異質なるものが。
Ooh. The body of the colossal serpent was composed of antiparticles. With a mere touch, it could send any known object into self-collapse. A torrent of destruction composed of near infinite greed.
触手芸はあんまり好みじゃないけど。
Yeah, well, a genre of pornography depicting women being subjected to various horrible acts of penetration, penetrated by tentacle monster. Tentacle porn is prominent in Rogue, and the point of it becoming its own subgenre. These games should not be played by anyone under the age of 18. I'm glad it points that out. There and then, Takumi's D-sword swung. It pointed its tip fixed at Nodose. He's basically using Nodose's own thoughts to wield to forge weapons to fight him with. Oh gosh. The dark serpent, winding itself in a coil, curved like its body like a whip. Its jaw snapped at Nodose.
まさかこれほどとは。
Not once had Nodose ever seen such a phenomena from a D-sword. He could not discern whether it was the hidden power of a Giglomaniacs or merely Takumi's delusion. The dark fangs eroded Nodose's body and he began to collapse. All too slowly, like a frog slowly dissolving in the belly of a snake. Darkness swallowed him. He felt no pain. By nature, his death should have been instant. But that was not what Takumi wished for. Realizing this, Nodose's lips twisted in a derisive smile. Nodose had no fear of death. One could say that his ideals that he had pursued had been accomplished with the completion of Noah 2.
私を殺してもノア2には誰も近づけない。永久期間なんですよ、それは。
A perpetual motion machine, an impossibility. A device that could continue to operate without receiving energy from external sources. But I mean, we're talking about a delusion machine. So like, if anything could, it could be that.
人類を未来永劫にわたって管理し続ける。ただ座して眺めているだけではない。人の幸福のために干渉してくる人工の神なのです。
Notice was God's inventor, so to speak. So as long as Noah 2 continued to exist, mankind would not perish, and the eternal utopia Notice sought would become real. However,
あんたなら近づけるんでしょ。
何？
The serpent's body wriggled and writhed with Notice in its grasp, lifting his body into the air.
それならあんたは鍵だ。
Yeah, exactly. Notice was astonished, but soon enough his face changed into an expression of pure agony. The serpent swung about his body with ease. Takumi shot a glance at Rimi, their eyes met. Just what was Rimi feeling as she watched him? Reading her mind would have been effortless, and yet Takumi did nothing of the sort. It seemed I was able to save you after all. He quickly averted his eyes. His gaze then shifted to the still humming Noah 2, the throne of God, where none could stand foot, a cradle for which showed naught but dreams of bliss.
ごめん。
It's kind of okay. So I gotta say this: having grown up with a Christian background, I do feel like this is actually interesting because whether intentional or not, this is actually a really interesting facsimile to the Ark of the Covenant from the Bible. This idea that it's a box that had mysterious power that people approached or looked into it, especially with malice and content. They could die of just horrible diseases. They could burst in pillars of fire. If it marched in heads of an army, it would usually lead them to victory. But if it was abused, it could be just taken by the enemy. It's very interesting. It's like history, but the ultimate idea was it's supposed to be this like Pandora's box you just didn't open, and that's kind of what this Noah 2 device feels like as well. He apologized to no one in particular.
僕は人類にとっての敵かもね。
The eternal utopia this device would have brought. A future without conflict. Takumi would have extinguished them with his own two hands. Was that right? Was it wrong? Takumi could not give an answer to that.
でも神話でもよくあるでしょう。神だって女絡みでうだうだやってる。
Even God said to slack off when women are involved. That's a quote if I've ever seen one.
だから僕も
Will sacrifice the happiness of mankind out of love for a girl. Takumi, D-sword in hand, bent his arms in a gigantic arc.
突き破れ
He thrust it forth, just like a javelin. The colossal serpent of darkness charged straight ahead. With the bite known as Nodose impaled by its tip, it flew straight toward Noah 2. An enormous serpent of antiparticles capable of terminating any known object. It had no will of its own, thus it was not something that could have been warped nor distorted. With a greedy impulse to destroy, using Nodose as the key, the delusional barrier was easily smashed to pieces. The perfect weapon. Disguising the strike behind Nodose's body, and then using something of pure power, a D-sword that can't be manipulated. Dang. Whew. Okay. I know there's more to the game. When did the rain begin to fall? There's just been a huge explosion. Oh, he's laying on his back now. And its blast? Its blast blew my body away like it was nothing more than a rag doll. Next thing I knew, I found myself lying here. Oh, is this the intro of the game? Those eyes were always watching me. The stare pierced straight through the thick pitch black rain clouds. Yeah, this is the intro of the game, and poured down on me like rain. Don't look at me. My body couldn't stop shivering, not from the chill of the rain, but rather the ice-cold rubble against my back. So terribly cold. A gaze pierced me from the heavens. Who did it belong to? I couldn't say. As if to escape it, I raised my head to look in the environment around me. Yeah, it's the dream we saw. There I saw a ruined city. There I saw despair. There I saw death. I saw nothingness. Not a soul was there. Not a soul was moving. Not a soul was left alive. The only thing I could hear was the sound of the rain continuing to pour. At this rate, everything, both the living and the dead, would it all be gently embraced and washed away? How nice it would be if all this was just a delusion, but that didn't seem to be the case. I couldn't move my body. I could only move my eyes and my neck, and even then just barely. Couldn't use that monstrous power from before. My body was shivering, but that was nothing more than a psychological phenomenon. It was happening because of my own will. It wasn't happening because of my own will. It didn't want my body to tremble. If I couldn't move it freely, then it wasn't my body. Or maybe I'd never had free will ever since I was born. Nobody knows exactly where their soul resides. Bearing that in mind, how could anyone say that there was a soul inside this body of mine? But then where exactly was I now? Was I really here? Was I anywhere at all? In this shattered world where all stood still, where all that could be heard was the rain of death, suddenly another sound echoed through it. A solitary existence began to emerge from the sea of nothingness. Who are you? Is your skin so pale because it had been numbed by the chill of the rain? Or was it because you were already dead? And yet this girl wasn't shivering. And those eyes of hers nearly hid by her bangs. Don't look at me. They looked so terribly sad. They looked as if they'd held a hint of madness. They looked as if they reflected nothing. If she and I were the only ones left in the world, if we stared into each other's eyes like this for all eternity, would my world be reduced to the reflection in her eyes? So why would her world be reduced to the reflection in my eyes? So I know what's about to happen. The only thing reflected in her eyes was me. The only thing reflected in my eyes was her. When I thought of it that way, the world immediately seemed so much smaller. So why is she going to do what she does now? Suddenly, a flash of static reached my ears, one endlessly beautiful yet deeply discordant. She lowered her head and spread her arms wide, almost as if preparing to take off, to soar high above the rain clouds, or as if trying to catch all the falling rain.
あなたを見つめる妄想
Okay. From where I was on the ground, I couldn't see the expression on that lowered head of hers. Behind the thin veil of rain, just what kind of face are you making?
してあげる。
Why? I really don't get this though. Why an angel? Are those dancing feathers of light blessing me, or? Ah, I see. I finally understand. She's going to use that to kill me. Why? The girl slowly kneeled to the ground before my collapsed body. I don't get this. With her head still lowered, she gently took my own in her hands. I surrendered my body to her grasp. I was just relieved that she wasn't looking at me.
殺さなくちゃいけないの。
In my ear, I heard a whisper, garbled by static. It was beautiful as it was discordant.
ごめん。ごめんね。
But why? Like, I don't understand. Why? Like, he did so much. Is he just too dangerous himself now? Is he truly a monster? There's nothing to apologize for. If I don't disappear, the other me, the real me, will die. So that's why I'm okay with this. In fact, I'm really glad I get to be erased by you. It's not a bad end for a monster like me. I don't have any regrets. A warm, soft, gentle, sweet sensation. Miraculous, as if it were an anesthetic. A shivering in my body slowly began to die down. Her soft breath tickled my cheek. It smelled so sweet. Suddenly, I sensed something pressing against my chest. The large sword she held tore through my skin, born into my flesh, weaved through my bones, and slowly sank through the center of my body. But, gifted with the anesthesia of her kiss, I no longer felt any pain. I would never have imagined I would get such a kind death. Just the thought of it broke my heart, leaving me on the verge of tears. Trying to hide them, I looked past the girl's head and up toward the ashen sky, where the rain continued to pour. That's really how that ends, huh? Dang. I really don't understand the ending, but maybe like the whole point was that be like he became a monster, but he ultimately wasn't real. He's able to save everybody. And but by dying, he could maybe give back the life force that he'd been borrowing. Maybe. To save the real version. That's so odd, though. It feels so abrupt. And if this was the original game, this is where it ended. I don't know if I'd be very happy with that. Like, it's an interesting story. But I'd find that very... What's the word? Unfulfilling? There's so many questions still. Like, what exactly happened? Why did it happen? What's going to, like, what's the result of all these events? Like, does the world kind of pick itself back up? Does the Council 300, like, pick up the pieces and continue the work? Or is it all gone? Does the world reassess itself? I'm not sure. I know the game doesn't end here. I think the original game ended at this point. This one, because it's the Noah game, it continues for in some way. So I'm not sure how that'll work. I'm sure we'll see the intro of that in a second. But if this is literally where it was ending, like the core story ends right here, that ending doesn't make sense. It almost feels like it was designed specifically to be a story hook to get you, because like you start the game, you start there, and maybe it's meant to be like the motivation to push through some of the cringy stuff at the beginning. But then when we get it here and we get to and it plays it out, it almost doesn't feel right. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't feel like it matches the story that we saw. Oh, by the way, I saw like they've got like all these like, they're saying thanks to everything to people and stuff, and they said thanks to Type Moon, which I'm sure, yeah, very much Typhoon probably inspired a lot of visual novel creators. But yeah, so I'm sure we'll get to the end of this and something else is going to happen. We'll play a little tiny bit longer, but we're probably going to wrap things up as soon as we can. I know it's just not the end, so I kind of want to see how it's going to move on from here, but I don't want to get too heavily into it. So I'll see you at the other end of these credits. Geomaru Studios, Nitro Plus. Feels like it's going right back to the title screen here. Mages. Good game. Good game. Not quite Steins Gate level, but better than I was expecting, honestly. Okay, reach the Silent Sky ending. Extra CG library is now available. Sound library now available. Movie library now available. Shortcut has been unlocked. Okay. So now what does it do? Just take me back here? Okay. Guess that's it. So, like, basically, the idea is it just gave us the confirmation of like, yep, there's multiple endings. Also, I just noticed, I don't know if this was here before in the intro, but you can see there's the ghostly images of the D-swords in this title screen. I don't think they were there, but they're there now, and that's pretty cool. And maybe they're going to be indications of the different endings we can do. But yeah, we'll have to see. So yeah, I guess we'll just end things here for now, because we'll have to figure out more from later. But we'll have to get back to that eventually. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel and for joining me for that ending. Yeah, no, that was definitely way more intense, and I imagine very much it's on the side of YouTube unfriendliness. That's like really disturbing, on the side of like, I can't even edit it out really, but I could see this being one of the most problematic videos for YouTube I've ever had because of the type of content it's describing. It might survive-ish, but I'm gonna put a clause in front of it, and I'm not gonna monetize it. Like, I don't think it'd let me anyway, but I'm not gonna try to, because I feel like when it gets to that level, playing with advertising is just a bad idea. So I bet this video doesn't even get that much attention because YouTube's not gonna push it in the algorithm at all. But for those of you who are here for it, glad you're here. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'll explore, like, maybe you can even give me a heads up of how I continue the game. Do I actually have to play the game again and I'll just see different choices, or do I go to the extra screen and like pick things up? It talked about like that kind of thing. So like, I'd love a little insight in that, just so I don't spend too much time faffing around trying to figure stuff out, but no spoilers. Just like kind of give me a direction of like how to make sure I go in the right path to start things again. But yeah, that was a lot. I don't even know how to process all that really. Like, it got real dark and twisted there for a while, and I think it kind of fried my brain. Maybe not fried my brain, more of like it kind of shut me down. You gotta remember, I'm very visual. My imagination is very powerful and very visual. So like those things that were being depicted, I was seeing them in my head, and that's kind of numbed me at this point. It's a bit too much, and that thing that's kind of sad is like mostly it was text on a screen with some added like visual effects. But the thing is that the language was so well like descriptive. It kind of, for me, it connects those extra dots, and so I really was seeing some pretty intense stuff in my head. That's the great downside. It's actually one of the things that makes me not a huge fan of like gore. It's kind of like what happened in that sequence was all very plot relevant, but it started tiptoeing its way towards like Saw movies, which in my mind I've never been a fan of. It's not that it's bad or even makes me feel that queasy. It just feels like it's like they are exploitative and like graphic for the sake of being graphic rather than because they're trying to tell an interesting story. And I feel like that the Delusions were tiptoeing to that to try and make them as horrible as possible. And that's fine, because it does work for the story, but I don't feel like I'd have a ton of patience for it if it kept going that far, that often. That is almost a souring effect. I think it took too much focus away from like what was happening to focus on just horrible things. And that's okay for the sake of this story, because that's the point. These Delusions are meant to be insanely horrifying, but it still is a lot, you know? I need a breather. So we're gonna take a test. We're gonna take a break for now. I'll get back to this next week, and we'll start whatever the next stuff looks like and however it shapes up. That'll be interesting to see. but I'm excited to do it. So thank you so much for joining me for today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next week's video and all the other good stuff we're covering on the channel. Started Legend of Heroes Trail to the Sky Chapter 3. We've also got Higurashi going strong. A lot of people are excited I started Chapter 3 of that. There's a lot of 3s going on now I think about it. But yeah, it's going to be really fun. And I look forward to sharing it with you. So thank you so much. Oh, I guess another shout out. When this comes out tomorrow, like so the day after this is published, there should be a Patreon cast coming out. It should be posted on Patreon. It also will be, and it will be something that's linked to. So if you get a link to the video or to the playlist because you've been a channel member or a patron, you should have access to it. If you are a patron or a member, you for some reason aren't seeing the posts that give you links to it, or you didn't save the playlist, like give me a message, let me know. And that goes for people who were formerly like patrons or members. If you were ever a patron or member and then you stopped for whatever reason, you should still have access to that playlist. So if you for some reason have lost it, like send me a message, like I'll confirm like who you are, and then like I should be able to send you a link directly that just gives you access to it all, so you can see them in perpetuity. Like you should never be locked out because you couldn't upkeep channel payments. That's silly. You donated anything to the channel, you get access to everything, in my opinion. That's just the way it should be. Anyway, we're gonna step away for now. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful journey, and I hope you mentally survived that nonsense and really intensity. But again, that ending just feels so incomplete in a way. I'm really curious if they actually address that, or if that's just the way it's supposed to end. An enigmatic, like questioning, like up to your interpretation type of ending. We'll see. But anyway, thank you so much. Until next video watching me, I've seen me next. I'll see you there.